Hello again, listeners. This is Ryan, and you've once again found your way to the Meandering Mixtape, a production of Tolt Records, recorded live in Carnation, Washington. Welcome back. In this episode, I sit down with Travis, aurora chaser, and rock photographer Wetherbee of Last Light Photography for a conversation that connects those two, a relationship that has some masterful similarities in the art of photograph. I hope you enjoy, and please support us by sharing that enjoyment with a like, a thumbs up, maybe a subscription, and a share. Thank you again for spending time with us, and here's episode 2 of the Meandering Mixtape podcast. All right, all settled in?
Yeah.
Oh, feeling good. Feeling good, all settled in, all tucked in. This is the Meandering Mixtape, episode 2, a special episode. I've got Travis Wetherbee with me. And on this episode, the reason I got Travis here is because Travis is an aurora chaser who uses low-light photography skills he developed, capturing one of nature's most spectacular midnight shows to become one of the most sought-after rock photographers in the region. And we're going to talk about that journey, those skills, and the moments that keep him coming back in front of the stage on this episode 2 of the Meandering Mixtape. Welcome, Travis. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah. You want to tell us a little bit about your how you became a photographer, your company, how long you've been doing this?
So I think 2018 is when I bought my first camera, and I want to say 2020 is when I started Last Light Photography. And first started out to chase aurora. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to photograph the aurora. I didn't really plan on taking photographs of people or events or anything else. That was going to be my thing. At the time, we were in a solar minimum, and so we would have a coronal hole pointed at us from the sun once a month, and we would get like a KP3, and you would run out and try. You know what I mean? And
so nobody has any idea what any of that
yeah,
means.
that's a weak storm. So you'll learn that soon. But it was just you would just go out there and try every month, and about every 3 or 4 months, we would have a storm where you can get a little bit of color in your photograph, and it was pretty exciting.
So let's talk about what is the aurora. It's a magnetic storm.
Yeah, so what happens on the sun is they have basically what's called a coronal mass ejection. It's basically like a nuclear explosion that blasts charged particles called the solar winds at Earth. And they hit our magnetic fields, so the North Pole and the South Pole. So northern is called the aurora borealis, the southern is called the aurora australis. And so when they come into the poles, our magnetic shield basically pushes most of it away, but a lot of it will get around to the North Pole and come straight in. And that's when we get our aurora storms.
Excellent. And that's just a light show.
Yeah.
Absolute light show.
Yeah, it's charged particles hitting our atmosphere at speeds of about 1,000 kilometers per second. And so if you've ever seen a shooting star, and that's basically like a grain of sand from a comet, and when it hits our atmosphere, you can tell. I mean, those shooting stars, they can be pretty long, and so these are charged particles from the sun. So they're not quite grains of sand, not that big, but there's just millions of them, and they just leave off such a beautiful light show.
And the further north you are, the more of these things you see, because obviously they come across the North Pole.
Yes.
So our friends up in Alaska see this quite regularly.
Yep. Scandinavia, Alaska, Iceland. Yep.
And so to come down to Washington State,
yes, we
still get some decent shows, but as you said earlier, it's dependent on time of year and sun activity and everything else.
Correct, yes. Right now we are moving out of a solar maximum into a solar minimum. So yeah, you're going to have to be going up to Alaska, Iceland to be able to see the storms.
And you mentioned aurora chaser.
Yeah.
Which feels a lot safer than like a tornado chaser to me.
Very much, yeah.
And is there a large community of aurora chasers? They sort of come to you.
Yeah. So there's a different danger. So tornado I will say the storm chasers, man, that is That is
That's
exciting.
If you're a tornado chaser, get a hold of us, and
man,
we'll talk to you about it
exciting
here
stuff.
on the podcast. But
Yeah, so my Instagram feed is just filled with tornadoes. So I love storm chasing. I just love watching that. And so yeah, no, we have a different danger, right? So obviously we're out late at night. There's animals. There's called apex predators out there that will be watching you. So it's a different danger, you know.
Yeah.
But you know it's there.
absolutely. And because it is solar weather, there is a forecast.
Yes.
And I'm going to throw up on screen here that one.
Yes.
And what we're looking at is the activity. And there is a satellite
Yep.
out there from our friends at NOAA that track the activity as it comes across the pole. And you said, what satellite was this coming
Called the
down?
Discover satellite, DSCRVR, and it gives us the data. It reads all of the data for us and then gives it to us in a readable format that gives us alerts.
And we can get visuals out of it. And
Yes.
it obviously spirals because, like you said, it comes across the North Pole.
Yep.
And the stronger storms will come down further south.
Yep.
We're not going to see anything based on this map because it is way too far north.
I would say I can give you the data right now. Hang on a second. So this is, so remember I said KP3 before, right? Really weak storm. So this is a KP2, 2 plus. So we're really getting after it. So this is about 500 kilometers a second. This is the solar winds here. Density is at 1.31 parts per million. Interplanetary magnetic field, the BT is at 4.26. The BZ. Now, it's interesting because the BZ here is actually, the BZ is where we're going to start, where you start to see pillars and the lights coming down closer to the Earth coming back through the atmosphere. And so what you need is the BZ to be in the negative or southern, right? So right now we're at a plus 0.59, but I can tell you in about 35 minutes, we're going to be at a -3. And so that oval that you see there will get wider.
Okay.
When the BZ comes down, and you might start to see a little bit of red up there in the Yukon. I want to say Northwest Territories. We're looking at Newfoundland, Iceland, and then you can see Greenland is there as well.
And the forecast, because of distance and physics, right? We can predict within a day or two what direction things are going, and that puts you on alert.
Yeah. So we'll get, I use spaceweather.com. That's an app you can download, and it gives you all of the data. And then what I will do is set up alerts. So I set it up to where I get an alert anytime there's a CME coming off the sun. So we have M class, X class, S class. I think it's S class is the small ones. No one cares about those, but.
And then you get in your fortified Aurora Chaser vehicle.
Yes, yeah.
And you get out of the light pollution.
Yes. So we don't have to we have a Bortle 4-5 sky here, so it's pretty dark. So we're not Alaska or Iceland, but when it comes down to us, you know what I mean? Yeah, we do have to get out of the city, because again, we're in Washington, so it's not and then because of the curvature of the Earth, we don't get to see the bottom of the lights either. Yeah. That what you would see in Alaska, Iceland, or in Scandinavia.
Yeah, and for those that haven't seen it and chasing these things, there's kind of a start to the thing, which a lot of greens, some blues, and the really rare ones start to get into the reds.
The pinks, the reds, and the purples.
So let's talk more about colors.
Yes.
Because we were into sort of your general, what most people have seen are the greens, and then you move on as you get more activity and it starts coming down south.
Yes.
You can get into...
Right, because of where we're at on the curvature of the Earth, right, we won't see the heavy green bottoms. So just to explain, so they're charged particles from the sun. It's basically a nuclear explosion just firing at us. Once that comes through the atmosphere, the electrons, once they go through the atmosphere, they heat up. And when they start to cool down is when they expel all of their energy. depending on where they're at in the atmosphere, is the color that you will see that they will emit. So obviously the lower end, you will see the green when the electrons are hitting the oxygen. That's 100 to 200 kilometers. Above 200 kilometers, I believe. Or no, so that's 0 to 100. 100 to 200, you will start to see your blues and a little bit of pinks in there. And then the higher you go into the nitrogen, you will start to see the pinks, or sorry, the reds and the purples. And then you'll get something way above that called Steve, which is a new phenomena and that we've been noticing since the 90s. And it's called Steve because that's how the college kids that named it, that was one of their favorite characters on one of the cartoons that they watched all the time. So
Nice.
And that is a white band that you will see above the pinks and the red. So you'll get the green, you get the thick red, you get the lighter pink, you'll get the purple, the blue, and then you'll get white pillars as well. And then above that, you'll get a line like this coming across. You'll think it's like a rolling cloud. It's not. It's Steve. And it hangs out there for about an hour and between 30 to an hour and a half, roughly. Yeah. It's weird. So anyway, those are the colors explained and how and why you see them.
Yeah. And it's rare to get into most of those colors down here.
Yeah, so you'll get the normal greens, and we'll see the top of that, right? On a KP3, KP4, kind of a weak storm. Okay, you'll see the green, right? When you start to see the red, the pinks, and then the purples is really where the storms are getting stronger. So we had a storm last year, right around in May, Mother's Day, I think it was weekend, May 10th, that it was so strong that we had pinks, purples, greens, Steve, all over the place down here. I mean, no matter where you look, so you didn't necessarily have to look north. And so that was a pure, what I would say, a northern storm. That's the way it would have looked if we were in Iceland or somewhere north where we were able to look straight up and even look south and see the lights.
And I remember that storm was so strong for a couple of days.
Yes.
Even with some light pollution, you were able to see some things happening.
Yeah, people were taking photos out of their front yards with their cell phones. It was amazing.
And what I'm going to throw up on the screen, if you're not listening to this, but are on the YouTube, some photographs that Travis has taken of some of these. And
yeah,
where was this one taken?
So this is Lake Margaret. This is above Duval, kind of northeast of Duval. Northwest of Duval, my bad. And this is a perfect example of, this is about a KP6 storm, and I want to say we're around 150 kilowatts of hemispheric power, and we didn't get into that, but, and that's the strength of the storm that the satellite is seeing or observing. And so here you can actually see, so this is Lake Margaret above, so I'm shooting from the public beach boat launch area, and then I'm looking northeast. And so in this photograph, you see obviously the lights. And so what you'll see is that base green, right? And then you see the orange. See the orange right there. In between the pink and the green is that orange. That's usually red, but sometimes we get that full pink. And then you see the pink going all the way up. And in between the pinks, you'll see the white, okay? And those are your pillars. Those are moving fast. What they're called is corona, and if you're looking above at them, it looks like they're coming at you at a spiral. But what we see down here is because this wasn't a really very strong storm. I mean, this wasn't anything too spectacular, and you'll see the size differences of the lights of the pillars when you look at other photographs. So here specifically, that's the Milky Way we're looking at. So in the middle of the photograph, just above the top of the pillars. That's the Milky Way, and over to the right is our sister galaxy Andromeda, or M31, or Messier 31. And then specifically, this is a good photograph for a great example of Steve. You will see that white line coming across the top right there. It looks like a cloud, but it's not. That's also aurora, but specifically Steve.
And the spectacular thing of this photo, for those that haven't seen it, you've captured the lake, the reflection off the lake, the trees in the background, the lights of the houses, and we can still just get this vivid color shift
Yep.
across the horizon, reaching up into the sky. And what I want to do with this podcast, and the reason I want to dive into this, this is low light photography. This is long exposure.
This is long exposure, low light photography.
This is waiting for the right moment and setting.
Yeah, you got to wait for the lights to come up, baby.
Yeah.
Like there's no, I don't, if I take this photograph tonight, nobody is going to click on that photograph.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like no one cares.
Yeah.
It's, oh, okay, great. I see this every day. You know what I mean? It's not that big of a deal. But when you add that color, it just, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Oh boy.
And so when you are hunting, when you are chasing, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you're looking for to hit that shutter? Because I don't have the stats on this photo, but this, to get stars like that, when I've tried to get it, it's seconds.
Yep. 6 seconds, 6400 ISO. I want to say I'm at f2.2 on this one. My focal point is one of the stars in the Milky Way there. It's a manual focus, so I have a specific lens, and this is a 24 millimeter Samyang lens made by Rokinon for specifically the Sony.
Yeah.
And it has a night mode. If you hold the button in, it changes you to night mode. So there's 6 seconds, we're in night mode, auto white balance, the deal. So how do I see it? I wait for the pillars to dance.
Okay.
So I let my eyes adjust at least 30 seconds. And usually what I'll do is I'll pick a shadow somewhere, and then I'll just focus on that shadow. And then the next thing as I do is I focus on a star.
Okay.
And then my eyes you kind of focus and you see through. Once you see through to that star, you'll start to see the dancing lights below. It'll be in your periphery. And that's when you know to take the shot.
Because you don't see this from the naked eye.
This one you could see, yeah. You could see them dancing just a little bit. When you see the white pillars in these shots, you can see that with the naked eye easily. It comes up as blue, actually, when you're looking at it with the naked eye. And because you'll see it dancing up on the very, very tops, and the greens are so bright that they kind of wash out the light pink, because this is a very, very light pink. You know what I mean? You can see the orange is just on the bottom, but...
So I've got another one here that is same place.
Yep. No. So this is so this is in the Snoqualmie Valley here. This is Carnation, in between Duval and the town of Carnation proper. Actually, this is like half a mile from Brody Nation. It's literally above Brody Nation Music Festival. So in this photo, this is 183 kilowatts, and I want to say we were at KP7. BZ was at negative 11.94. And the reason I can rattle that off so quickly is because this storm just happened on this was Sunday night. And I had a newbie with me, so I had a new chaser with me, Ryan Miller from RMV Productions.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. So he's been doing a lot of video for a lot of the festivals that we work at, and he was like, he pinged me Saturday, and he was like, hey, can I come out with you? Anyway, and like, I want to say 10 minutes later, the storm hit. So it was funny. I explained, I'm like, no, the storm's tomorrow night. Don't worry about it. And like, and again, I'm an experienced aurora chaser. 10 minutes later, the storm hits, and I'm like, we got to go.
Sometimes it happens.
Right. Yeah. It's just the way it is. So, and specifically, I seen on Wednesday, Thursday before the storm. So it's 36 to 72 hours before, as I saw the M-class flares coming off, and I was like, okay, whatever. I've been spoiled by X flares coming off the sun. So, but there was a cluster of them, which made this storm. And so what happens when they cluster like that is one or two will cannibalize the others. And then you'll get this massive, spectacular storm that develops on the way to Earth.
The thing, so I lived in Alaska for 4 years in Anchorage, and I remember climbing up ladders to get on top of buildings in the middle of the night because I worked overnight. And so I rarely got away from the light pollution, but I was able to get above the streetlights. And the thing that catches me off guard when I see photographs of the aurora, from what I remember of the naked eye, is the auroras I saw were the bands were narrower.
Yes.
And so they don't extend. And the thing that caught my eye on this photo is there's almost no natural sky in this photo. It goes from that vivid yellow green to just that little bit of band of, and then the rest of the sky is just that purple,
white
that
and purple,
vivid
So
purple.
specifically, and that's because of the way the lights hit the pole,
Yeah.
and they're pulled in by the pole's magnetism, and because when they're pulled in by the magneticism, when you're looking at it from Alaska, Iceland, Scandinavia, Northwest Territories, those sorts of things, you're looking at the light coming straight down at you. So your bands aren't going to be wide.
Yeah.
Because you're getting the coronal when it flies through the atmosphere, it thins out a little bit. So when you're south of the poles, what you see is the curtain.
Okay.
So we get the curtain effect. We get to see the top of the atmosphere all the way down. In Alaska, you're looking straight up, okay?
Yeah.
Up out here, we're looking just at the horizon, so we get to see those pillars come all the way down. And of course, you'll see them in Alaska and Iceland. They will see the pillars because when it extends out to, right, those KP7s at 354, you know what I mean, kilowatts of hemispheric power, then they can see from the north. They can see to the south, and then they can see the curtains as well. So the curtains are basically, we can always see the curtains, right? But you guys only see the curtains when it comes down south to us.
Yeah. It's wild. And have you chased outside of Washington State?
Yes, Hawaii.
Okay.
And I'm embarrassed to say it is Palm Springs.
Well, that seems lucky. Not like
Yeah, we had I think it was it was a 2-week vacation down there, and there was a storm, and I was like, hey, my nephew was with me, and I said, hey, dude, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's try.
You always have your gear.
Yeah, I always have my gear with me. Oh yeah, and so I remember him and I out there in the field, like this sandy area outside the resorts. We had to get away from the resorts because it was so bright down there. But we got some really cool photos of the southern sky, which I don't get to see. So, but yeah, there was no aurora. But we were hoping, maybe we get a tall band, because when you're down there, you will only see the reds and the purples.
Yeah. You
You will never see the greens because, again, the curvature of the earth. And I was just looking at this photo, the guy that caught the Saturday night storm in Colorado. And there was only reds in his photo.
Yeah.
It was a spectacular photo, but only the reds, because that's the only color they can see, because they can't see over the horizon.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, is when it gets down that far south and you're still able to get everybody north of you is having a
we're having a heyday.
Yeah.
We're not sleeping.
yeah.
It's caffeine time, baby.
Yeah, if anybody down Palm Springs, Arizona says they're going to see the aurora, it's prime time.
Oh yeah, that's Carrington event time there, though. Boy, if you get down that low. So a Carrington event is where the aurora hits us so bad that it knocks out all our electronics, like an EMP blast. So they had that in 1892. They had a Carrington event. So
Well, it would screw up the podcast for sure.
that would make it difficult. Yeah, distribution.
Let's keep it a little tamer than that.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So coming back to this photo, so you can see those 3 major pillars on the right there, just above the the horizon, and above that you will again see Steve, and it's a wider band of white. There's a photo from Tandem Wheels Photography. They're actually they're pilots, and they go flying around all the time. They actually chase storms down south too. But they caught this band straight on underneath almost, and it was pure white in their photos. So it was pretty wide on mine. This was a crazy storm.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I have seen the aurora from Anchorage, and it was not this big.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the best way to describe it. I got the reds. I got the dancing.
Yeah.
The dancing is something.
Yeah, you guys will see the dancing all the time, man. Yeah, that just coming right through the atmosphere. We can see it a little bit from the side of the curtain, right? But when it's shooting at you guys up there. So it's really cool. And this storm specifically was interesting because, again, Ryan contacts me Saturday night at 8 o'clock or whatever it was, or maybe it was earlier, I don't know. And I was like, well, because he was trying to wrap his head around, hey, how do you chase? He was asking a ton of questions. So it was kind of cool to answer. And, he was trying to wrap his head around, like, when do you leave? How do we schedule this?
Yeah.
What do we do? And I was like, well, we leave when we get the alert. And, we get to the spot that we can get to, right? you can plan these things out and you can get to some pretty cool spots. And I talked about it. I hiked up Rattlesnake Ridge in North Bend, and that took 45 minutes, the planning of it and all that. So, and then I got lucky that night that the storm came up and, showed up. But I said, you can plan all you want. So this storm specifically, he was asking about, well, when you get the alert, how much time do you have? And I'm like, well, sometimes it's, 1,000 kilometers per second. And I said, you get about 25 minutes. I said, if it's at 600, 300, you get the extended time. So, it's fun. It's exciting because, again, you never know when it's going to, you technically know a little bit, but it's still, kind of like, oh, it's going to be great. And if it does show up, it's awesome. And it's such a feeling. So, it's exciting. It gives me goosebumps. And
you're, it's landscape photography. Yep. It's long exposure. You got to be careful about what is in the photo, right? The photos that we were looking at here, all the houses are just, they're just lit up. Yes. Right? Just a porch light is just going to wash out.
They're 6-second exposures. Yeah. No, it's...
So when you go up to a ridge, right, and you're looking down into a valley, you'll pick up a little bit, and it changes the dynamics of the photo.
It does. And that photo specifically, you'll see it on my Facebook page, but it is, I had to take a 20-second exposure up there because I wanted the town to be lit up. Okay. And so you don't get the pillars in that photo because my exposures were so long, but you get the really thick colors, and the stars look amazing. It's like, whoa, hey. 20-second exposures at like 1200 ISO, f2.8 the whole time. So, but that one, I had icicles on my beard that night. It was cold.
Yeah.
That's
so one of the things I wanted to talk about, and that's a great segue. Whenever I've seen it, I have, I see it in my mind, but I have a feeling.
Yeah.
Right? Because when I saw it's cold, single digit temperatures. Yep. Because for some reason it happens in the winter.
Yep. Well, lighting in the summertime up north is, the sun's up.
Right.
you don't get nighttime.
Yeah. So it is winter to see it when you're up there. Yep. And so it's cold.
Always.
Whenever it's cold out, it's quiet.
Yes.
And I was remembering, I'm like, why was it so quiet? Because I would usually see it with other people.
Yeah.
we didn't talk.
No, you're just in awe of the show, and specifically on stronger storms. I will say this: you can hear them up on the north, so they crackle, and you can hear that crackle because when they're coming through, when the charged particles are coming through atmosphere, they make a sound when they're coming through, and enough of them come through, they will make a reverberating sound, and you can hear the crackle. And if you're a ham radio operator, you can hear Russia from Washington.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the same storms that affect the ham radio operators are the ones generating this stuff. And that can be a positive, it can be a negative.
R2 radio blackouts come up so often on my alert. Okay, yep.
But yeah, just from a feeling and a sound, like you said, you can hear them if you're out far enough and it's quiet.
And it's strong enough. I mean, they've got to be firing at you.
But yeah, I just remember being cold and it being very quiet.
Yeah, because nighttime, it's got to be wintertime up there. So right now, even now, on these ones, and I was talking to Ryan, he's like, how do you schedule this out? And I said, specifically, we don't actually need to worry about that tonight. I said, we can only start shooting at 11 p.m. That's when, right? So after nautical twilight. Otherwise, your photos are going to be really blue. Yeah. And then we have to stop shooting at about 3:15, between 3:15 and 3:30. So if you go back to some of the ones from Lake Margaret, you will notice the color differences. And because we got there at I got there about 2:30, 2:40, and then I shot for about an hour. So I shot about 15 minutes past. It made the reflections really cool looking, but I shot too far. So in the summertime, right, we're coming up on the summer solstice now. So where are we at? The 4th or 5th right now. So a couple weeks. Yeah. So we lose, and we're only about 3 hours of actual nighttime to shoot. So, right, in the summertime, your schedule's made for you. It's 11. Well, it'd be 11:15, 11:20 around the solstice, and then to about 3 o'clock, and you can see the sun coming up at 3 o'clock in the morning. So that's the schedule in the summertime. But in the wintertime, boy, it's game time. Yeah. But in Washington, unfortunately, in the wintertime, the clouds are always here.
Yeah, they're hard to see through the clouds.
They are. I've seen them through the clouds. I've shot them through the clouds too. But yeah, it's summertime here, spring, summer, right? You get them. I've got them on July 2nd. So that one actually right there with the Steve in it is from July 2nd, 2022. So it's right around this same time as far as where the sun is and how much time we have in the nighttime. So
Yeah, good stuff. So for those that have been listening, they're like, why the heck is Toll Records talking about,
yeah, what's he doing here?
what is he doing, man? Like, this is,
Why are we talking aurora?
This is
Nighttime
just-
photography with
this
some
is-
landscape guy. Yeah.
yeah.
So weird.
So I think I can explain it in a photo that we pulled up here. I'm going to bring it up on if I can remember how I drive this thing. So we were talking low light photography,
Yeah.
right? And the colors that you capture.
Yeah.
And we quickly...
That's not aurora up there, man.
It's not aurora, no. And we went through very quickly some of Travis's rock photography. I guess we'll call it rock photography.
Yeah.
And the stage lighting,
Yeah.
the same blues,
Yeah.
the greens,
Yep.
right? The spotlights. No wonder you've gravitated to being such a prominent photographer of the stage. You know, if you've got such a good background of trying to capture these colors and getting them off the stage like this has been pretty spectacular. So obviously people moving around,
Yeah.
you're not going to have the benefit of long exposure times.
Nope. No. God, no. That'd be
So
great.
how do you transition from knowing that those colors are there, knowing the camera can capture them, and
Yeah.
developing those skills and transitioning into music and rock photography?
So I'm going to tell you, this is equipment here. I mean, like, you have to have the equipment to do this specifically. So talking between 2020, 2021, specifically my photography kind of took off, really. I mean, the quality of it. And that was because I went from the Canon T6i, and I'm not trashing Canon. They've got some great landscape photography. I mean, I miss the colors from Canon. Coming to the Sony full frame mirrorless was, eye-opening. I used to have to take panoramics with my Canon to be able to get the night shots that I wanted. I have a shot from Lake Chelan. It was a 3-shot. It's one of my very first ones. 2019 was when I first shot it, and it's 3 photos, and it was just terrible. Like, I still posted it though, so I was excited. But it was, but yeah. So that was my old Canon, and so the noise, the amount of noise the Canon can handle was, and it's a midline landscape photography, camera that I was pushing to the limits. When I moved up to the Sony A7 III, it just, like, the low light capabilities of the Sony cameras and sensors are unmatched as far as I'm concerned. That's why Nikon uses them. And so it's, when I stepped up, my night photography really kind of took off at that time. And I'd been shooting the Aurora for about 1.5 years, 2 years at the time. So I was always chasing. But I remember going to that Sony and going, okay, whoa, it's eye-opening, the amount of light that it picks up. The amount of stars I was getting in my photos, I actually thought was fake. I was like, what is this? So I had to reach out to one of my deep space photographer friends, Jason Kuhn, in Duval, and I was like, is this real? And he's like, yeah, it's real. I was like, wow. Way different from what I saw with the Canon. And so, right, it enabled me to go into venues like this and pick up the light that I needed. And specifically, I run last light photography, quite literally, I'm catching the last light always. And so in this photo specifically, it's shot with I want to say that's probably my 70 to 200 from behind the crowd. And this is zoomed in, so you can see all the noise in the photo. But you can see, Lars there on his guitar. There's Brittany Danielle, Peter Daniel, and Harry Worth on bass. I don't know the drummer's name. That was the first time I worked with them on this show here. This is from the Spanish Ballroom in Tacoma, McMinimans. Beautiful place.
It is all there. And it's their anniversary. So
It is.
Get out to a McMenamins.
Yes, they got some great shows coming up. But yeah, so coming into these venues and finding, a place for myself outside of, chasing, Aurora once a month, I had to justify buying this equipment. So, and the one time I met Morgan Henley, and he invited me to a Brett Benton show, and it was over. That was actually 4 years ago,
Yeah.
5 years ago. So 2021 is when I started shooting music, specifically. But yeah, so it's long exposure. This is, you know what I mean? Like, this is low light photography, so there's no natural light in here. So you gotta use what you can use.
Yeah, I mean, you're pulling from the stage,
Yes.
and so many shows are backlit now.
Yes.
So everybody's dark
Yes.
and everybody's moving.
Yep.
And so, like I said, you don't have the benefit of long exposure.
Correct. Yeah.
Because everything's just going to blur.
Yep.
You don't have the benefit of, well, in some cases, high ISO.
Right. Well,
But then you get noise, and
Right,
especially if
so-
you're going to zoom in.
Yep.
And so,
And
like
we
you
don't,
said, it's...
and we don't use flash.
Right.
That's a sin for me.
Yeah, that'd be horrible.
Unless you're at a punk show.
Well.
Then you can't get in without the flash. But anyway, shout out to my punk rock and roll photographers with their flashes. You get thrown out of the pit at a show like that with a flash.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, you cannot. You can't. You can't. There's no flash fill for the crowd, so there's nothing. I can't fill any light on the crowd. I've got to take what I can take, and and it's technique. It's stuff I've learned over 4 or 5 years now that I've been shooting rock and roll photography. But it's stuff that I learned hiking into the woods at night and looking at the stars specifically, and understanding how fast light moves, understanding f-stops, and you know what I mean. Do I go with a low f-stop, high f-stops? How does that affect my photo? What does that do for to the performer on stage? With my Canon, I can sometimes shoot f8, and if landscape photographers, that's where you start.
Yeah.
And it's so sharp, and in some the lighting is so good that I can shoot f8, and it's really kind of cool looking. But the background has to be right. But most of the time I shoot a f2.2 in these places here. So you got to have some fast lenses. The equipment is the biggest thing in here. I mean, once you get below that f2.8 lens in a venue like this, then it's technique. But your equipment has to be able to pick up that light and translate it to something that's viewable for the for the consumer specifically, because if I shoved 6400 ISO into my Canon to take that photo, I wouldn't be a rock and roll photographer. I'll tell you that not for long.
Just noise.
Yeah, it would be just noise, and I would probably turn it black and white and hide everything.
Yeah. Which is a nice style.
It is a nice style, and if you do see if you see some black and white photos, you go, okay, the lighting was not optimal. But yeah, on these ones, yeah. So I'm I would say probably about 80 yards from the stage. And so in this one, they have the two big spotlights behind. So it made it kind of a nice photo to take. And you can see Hannah's hair on the right there from the Stax brother. So sometimes I'll focus on her because she has white hair when she goes. So it's kind of fun technique to use.
Yeah. And I pulled this one because I do like there's sort of all the colors we talked about in here. They're muted a little bit.
Right, the red, greens, and blues. And then when they cross, you can get the purples, and you can see some oranges and the greens on the edge.
I can find Steve.
Yeah, Steve's up there too. He's up there in the rafters or whatever they call it on stages.
So, just going back and forth, and what the lighting people are doing these days is pretty spectacular, and the rigs that they've got. And
yeah, I will say in my time when I first started showing up to venues, the last probably 5 years I've seen a huge uptick in the level of gear that venues have now. And again, that's pricing coming down to their levels. And Tony V's in Everett, I mean, oh man, that's the place, boy. He's got that. He's got some great backlighting. He's got the great laser setup from Donovan Lighting. The place is a great place to shoot. So a lot of these places are as well. I mean, you got McMinimans, you got Sea Monster Lounge. I mean, the last time I was at Sea Monster Lounge, it was Torn Frost and the Patterns of Saturn. Wow. And that was the photo we were just looking at. Yeah. We were like, I might want to use this one. So I was on stage with them, shooting them from behind, getting that crowd shot. That's not possible they've got crowd lighting now, so you can see that. And we'll say this with Donovan, the last Brody Nation. I talked to him after 2023, I want to say. I said, hey, man, it'd be great to get some crowd lighting. And the next year, man, it was on, and it was great. It was lighting in photography. To be able to do these shows, like, we have to work as a team. And it's fun to work collaboratively. I'm gonna talk about Donovan lighting all night, but because I worked with him so much. I mean, I do about 150 sets of music a year. A lot of those are at the same festivals, and that's how I count as it per set. But I would probably say he's at 50%, maybe 60% of my shows. So he has a big impact on my ability to take the photograph. So if you watch the photographs from 2021 Brody Nation versus 2024, you're going to see a huge difference. And that's because of lighting and, of course, experience. But
Yeah.
the lighting game, baby.
Yeah, and why do we go to shows?
It's spectacular.
It's the full experience, right?
Yeah, it's the full
You
spectacular.
smell the grass or the venue. Some venues have a smell for,
Yeah,
good or
definitely.
bad.
Yeah, they definitely have a smell. That's
But
true.
we definitely want that visual experience and being part of the crowd and capturing that in still photos, flat still photos is an art form. It's
fun.
Yeah, and it's the lighting that gives that depth.
Oh yeah, lighting, and then specifically lasers. Donovan's lasers are amazing. Lighting is great, right? When you've got it, the colors are great, right? As long as you're not red or straight blue. Well, sometimes venues do that for the openers, so they'll go red for the one opener, they'll go blue for the second.
I was going to bring this one up real quick because this one is a lot of orange.
Yep.
A lot of spotlights, a little bit of that purple.
Yep.
This one moves sort of away from what you would traditionally think as an aurora set of photos, but it's got those beams of light.
Yep.
It's got that contrast, and there's almost movement in it.
Yep. Yeah. So I'm just gonna like, you got to have your shutter speed right for these ones. So this is the balance. Okay. Those lights are moving.
Yeah.
Those people are moving. And you have to strike the balance of how much blur can I have with the lights. Now he's zooming in. This is actually a landscape photo. And this was used for a promo this is Citrus at the Nectar Lounge 2022. So this is actually the center cut of a landscape photo on a 20 millimeter. And you're still able to zoom in on it like that. So this is already cropped. This is basically a third of the photo. And then, so you have to strike the balance between these two. So those lights are moving, the lasers are moving, the people are moving, the musicians are moving, and then you have to hit this right. And I will say this, specifically for this photo, a lot of this is editing to get the lighting in the crowd. So this photo is processed 4 separate times, and I'm not going to tell you how I do it, but yeah, that's how I get that photo without noise to get the crowd in there, as well as, because this was used for a promo by Citrus.
Yeah.
And specifically, I wanted to bring the crowd up for it, because I used this photo for my Duval Days promo for Citrus when we had them last year.
Yeah. And when I see photos like this, because I've shot on the amateur side, I call myself an aggressive amateur.
Aggressive amateur. Nice.
I'm the idiot with the prosumer gear who has no idea how to use it. But as an aggressive amateur, you do load it into things like Lightroom, and you load it into these tools that give you this capability, and you start to move the sliders around. And somebody who knows what they're doing versus an aggressive amateur like myself, I'll move the sliders on the entire photo and blow out. To me, it's like, okay, what do I not want to blow out to get enough crowd? But using this in promo, like you said, it's 4 different layers.
Yep.
You're kind of adjusting at each layer. And knowing that this was landscape gives me a little more of a clue. But at the same time, technique here is experience and just doing it. Over and
over again. When I used to go to shows, so each set was like 400 or 500 photos.
Yeah.
I mean, I've taken over 1 million photos.
Shoot it till it's dead.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've already went through one sensor, completely destroyed it in 4 years. So actually 2.5 years, I blew that thing up. But it is it is over and over and over again. And I'm going to be honest, I'm going to take just a little time out here and thank every band that has ever put me on their list and said, come practice. You know what I mean? We would love to have you. You know what I mean? It was, Gwen, just, hey, come to my show. Richie, come to my show. Torn Frost, come to my show. Like, hey, yeah, bring your equipment. It was...
And to echo that, it's not just, hey, come to my show and stand in the back.
Right. Yeah.
It's get close.
Yeah. No.
Get on stage.
Yeah.
And finding those spots and knowing what works and what doesn't work, because it's at best 45 minutes to an hour for some of these shows.
Yeah.
And you miss a moment, you miss a moment.
Oh, man. I hate it. So FOMO, being ADHD, we like to look forward to things. Yeah. We really do. You know what I mean? I think that's why I'm a rock and roll photographer. I'm always looking forward to an event. And man, you miss those moments. And it's like, oh man, but next time I know better, right? Yeah. And so I've learned movements from these bands. I mean, so Citrus was one of the first bands so I picked up with them after 2021, I think it was. 2022, actually. They were one of the first bands who were like, hey, yeah. And they started paying me. It was pretty interesting. I was like, whoa, way. But they were like, yeah, get up on stage, get in here, right? Get the photo, because we want that photo too. Yeah. It's not necessarily, oh, great photo from back there, stay back there, you know what I mean? Keep doing your thing. Get in here, get the photo that we need, right, to make because you're our media person, essentially, at that point. So they want those photos. Say, I remember being on stage at the Buffalo in Bellingham, sorry. And I went up on stage with Citrus. And but yeah, so I've been on stage with every band that I shoot for ever since. And I don't know how else to shoot the show anymore.
Yeah. Well, and it's so important. I mean, and if you're a band and you don't have a photographer that does this.
Yeah.
One, you don't have a plan, and you need a plan.
Yeah, you got
because it is about marketing and branding, but it's also about who's looking at these photos. And yes, your fans are looking at these photos, and you want to look phenomenal. Yeah, and you want to use that lighting to your advantage and look just spectacular. Yeah. But talent buyers, venues, there's others looking at these, and they are looking at different things. Yes. And so your job, partially, when a band hires you, is to both get those social media fan photos, but even more important, those photos, and we won't go into the details of what you're capturing, but what those venues and promoters and talent buyers are looking for, and not losing those moments.
Right. So go back and look at that Citrus photo. So that's what they're looking for. Yeah. This gives you and it's hard to portray what's happening at a show in a photo. It is so hard, right? Because, okay, what are the crowd doing? What are they even playing? Who is that? Where are they at? Why is that lit up? You know what I mean? If a person's just looking at the phone, so you really have to tell the story through the photo, through that lighting, through, this is the crowd. You bring the crowd up, right? Light them up a little bit. Make sure the band is lit. And then that one specifically, Jared Squires is right on the front, just, you know what I mean? Yeah. Hitting that note with his head to the side. And I will say this, there's 12 versions of that photo. Yeah. With his head, just you know what I mean? It's milliseconds. You know what I mean? When the strum's coming down, and I'm like, okay, I'll pick this one to process. But yeah, they're looking for that, and you know what I mean? They're looking for those photos that make them look like rock stars. And I remember, as a photographer, I don't like to look at other photographers' stuff because I don't want to seem derivative, so to speak, right? I don't want to, hey, they did this, and so I'll do that too, right? But when I first started shooting, after I shot the show with Brett Benton at the Bindle Stick in Snoqualmie, May something of 2021, I went and looked online, and I remember seeing Jimmy Page, right, with his platforms on, with his bell bottoms, right, and it was just this long wide angle photo, and Jimmy's so tall on that guitar, right? I was like, whoa, okay. All right, that's what I'm looking for. And I had a 20 millimeter at the time, and I remember it was one of the next shows. I think it was Heels to Hardwood. And it was I can't remember his name. Kevin Stiles. trying to remember everybody's names. And he's really tall, like, you know, like Jimmy. And I remember taking that photo and I was like, okay, this is what we're looking for, right? Just that, you know, oh, hey, this is a moment in time of this person playing whatever riff. But that long kind of photo. But yeah, it's always EPKs, right? So they're looking for those headshots. They're looking for that, you know what I mean? Those things while they're playing, because it means they had a professional photographer at their show. It wasn't their buddy that, you know what I mean, just brought his equipment.
Yeah.
And so it adds a level of professionalism for the bands when they can do that.
Yeah. No comment about the potato phones we're using to film this, but we're working on it.
Hey, I took a photo of the Aurora with my iPhone 16 on Saturday night, and I was like, come on, man.
Have you ever pulled those in and tried to process them?
No, I've never tried to process them at all. I can't, man. I'm not. I spent like 20-something hundred on my
Well,
Sony.
they're interesting because the sensors are garbage.
Oh, well, yeah. As soon as you zoom on those or you pull down the highlights, yeah, it goes quick. And the thing of it is on the iPhone is they do automatic noise denoising.
Yep.
And so I can always tell a photo. And I will say this, I used to denoise my Aurora photos until iPhone started doing it, and now I don't at all.
What was the photo that somebody called you? I was like, this is AI. And then you purposely took a selfie at that location.
So that was
I love that story.
So 2021, so it was October 10th of 2021. Big storm. I want to say 10th, 11th, right? So technically it went from 11:30 to, you know, from the 10th until about 2 a.m. on the 11th. And that was the 20-second exposures.
Yeah.
And because specifically I was trying to light North Bend to Snoqualmie, so all the way from Tanner, right, just by Trucktown, all the way down to Mount Si High School, you can see. And so it takes a long time because those colors are amber lights. Most of them are amber lights. You can see some greens and stuff like that, and especially on the bottom right there on the base of Mount Si, you can really see some greens. But I was trying to take that 20-second exposure, and that was a G2 storm, so it goes from G1 to G4, but it was, I want to say, about 150 something kilowatts, and so it wasn't quite as big as the one we had Saturday. So normal exposure times was 6 seconds, 6400 ISO, right, f2.8. So I was running it. I didn't want noise in my photo because I didn't want the town to light up and be really noisy. So it was 20 seconds. I want to say between 6 and 1200 ISO, right? F2, F22, F2.8 were my settings most of the night. And then I would just went in and process them that way. So those photos were, I think they were shared over 500 times. People on the East Coast saw my photos.
Yeah.
They were like, Travis, we just saw your photo on the news. I was like, what? And so I gave a good bunch of stations the permission to use the photos. I want to say they were viewed over 87,000 times. Which was amazing at the time. I was, a couple hundred likes was like my biggest photos. I was like, whoa. But, you share those onto Aurora chasing sites. And this one specifically was the Como News site. And so we get, anytime Aurora blows up that page, right? So Como News uses our photos for their weather forecasting, right, in the background. So we get exposure as photographers. And so it's pretty cool when your stuff is chosen. And I want to say they chose my photo. But anyway, so yeah, commenter came on there and said it was AI. I was like, well, I don't think you understand. I mean, the basis of photography is to ask somebody, hey, what were your settings, right? Yeah. Not come at them and say this is AI, because like AI really wasn't like a big thing back then. And I was like, what? And so they were saying I was fudging my settings, and I was like, okay. So yeah, I just gave them the settings, and they were like, well, that's too long. I'm like, okay, great. That's your art.
Right.
This is my art.
Yeah.
Like, if I question a photo, right, I want to know what their settings were, right? It's not that I'm questioning the photo. I want to go, how did you do that? That's awesome, right? Like, this is cool. You don't come at somebody like, I know you're fake, give me the goods. So, no, I gave him the goods right away. You hike up up there. I didn't see you next to me.
I see it regularly because you can do so much after the fact.
Yeah.
And some people push it way too far.
Yep. Yeah.
I was saying earlier, I'm not a huge fan of super vivid photos. Like the whole high HDR thing
Yeah.
is not, I mean, when I used to shoot quite regularly, I would even pull down
Shadows.
some of the settings in
Yep.
my photos so they weren't so vivid,
Yep.
so that I could sort of see them as I saw things more naturally, and then
Right.
I could
Yep.
boost it up if it was a good photo.
Yep.
And what comes out of that, because I think there's been this trend towards huge contrast, huge dynamics,
Yep.
super soft photos.
Yep.
And even the Google Pixel phones that go to the cloud to do the AI processing, it all looks soft to me. It all looks oversaturated.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look real necessarily.
And there's a reason for that.
Right. And so when somebody sees something like an aurora photo,
Yeah.
right, or they see something
Yeah.
that well, I was at that show, right,
Right,
and
yeah.
that wasn't
That-
that
what it
wasn't the
looked like,
lighting
yeah.
of the show, right? But if you're really into photography, it's like, no, it's there.
It's there. You just,
You can get it out. It's
Yeah.
not that you're tricking people.
no, it's there. It's always there.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. And the thing of it is you have to understand lighting in the way that people interpret it with their eyes. I have 10/10 vision. I can see for miles. I interpret light differently than you would interpret light. Yeah. So I always make my photos the way that I see them, which is super sharp.
Yeah.
One of my mentors, Rick, and that was the purist versus the, you know what I mean, the editor, right? The purist versus the editor, you know what I mean? Like, how much do I edit my photos? How much do I don't? And he was like, well, make it look the way that it looked when you were there, yeah. Right? And so for me, when I'm seeing the aurora, I don't see those. It's not that vivid, right? But I'm going to make my photo to where you can see it, like to see, right? So I don't add color. I do everything in Lightroom. I don't touch Photoshop I don't add stuff like that to my photos. But yeah, I'll pull highlights down. You know what I mean? Add a little bit of vibrance, those sorts of things okay, it was foggy, right? So the ones from Saturday night, you can see the fog dancing around, you know what I mean, on the lake. But it gets, right, it kind of ruins the photo a little bit. So you sharpen it up, you just dehaze it a little bit because, right, you're out there shooting. If it's foggy, yeah, you just dehaze it a little bit, right, to be able to show what you're trying to show people. As an artist, when I go out to shoot aurora, I'm not out there trying to document the aurora. I'm not working for NOAA. Yeah. The government's not using my stuff, right? It's my art. Yeah. And the way that I like to see it, right? The way that I like to present it. And so, right, it's because again, no one's vision is the same. Everybody interprets colors differently. So I make my art the way that I like it. So yeah, that person was pretty funny because again, you're trying to balance the crowd. So when in North Bend, you're trying to balance the lighting from the town of North Bend, right? So all the ambient light pollution, but I call it ambient light because it was adding to my, right? It was adding to my photo. It wasn't polluting it. It was something I wanted to pull out, right? And to do that, I had to oversaturate the aurora. Because on that photo, I mean, you're looking at the back of Mount Si. I want to say it goes back to Mount Washington all the way to Mount Si, and then you've got Tanner all the way down to the Mount Si High School. It's a huge photo. You can literally see, I think, Mount Baker. Wow. In the photo as well, if you zoom all the way in. So I'm up at 3,500 feet, shooting to Mount Si, which is the haystacks at 4,000 feet. So it got cold. It got, you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm going to take a longer exposure up there. But yeah, so I make my art for me. I don't make it for anybody else. If you like it, cool.
I had an opportunity many years ago to talk to a National Geographic photographer who studied under Ansel Adams. He was one of Ansel's last students. And he was at this conference I was at. One of the stories he told on stage during his presentation that really you develop your photos, right?
Yeah.
And he was working in the development room, which is basically a shack in Ansel's backyard. And Ansel had another another shack where he would work on stuff that he shot, like in full frame class,
Oh,
the
wow.
really old stuff.
Yeah.
And he's just working. All of a sudden, Ansel comes running across the yard and says, I got it, I got it, I got it, I got it. You got to come see it. You got to come see it. He's like, what are you doing? And he goes in there and he goes, I finally got it exposed the way I wanted it. It was a photo he took 25 years ago that he remembered exactly what he wanted it to look like.
Yeah.
And he just kept working on it and working on it and working on it
Yeah.
to get exactly the exposure from the film that he wanted.
Everybody thought Ansel Adams took the photo, and that's the way he took it.
Yeah.
So developing in a dark room, right?
Yeah.
It's called Lightroom, the technology.
Right.
Okay. It's called a dark room because you stood in a dark room. Okay. You can come into the light with Lightroom. In a dark room, they would add filters. They would, depending on the chemicals, the types of things they would add to the photo to bring certain things out. Because again, when you're using a physical photo, right, that sort of stuff, you had to have the right speed of the right and for what you were shooting, and that's not always the case. I mean, stuff was expensive. You always, you know what I mean, photographer, oh, I forgot to swing by the store, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I got to go with a brighter, right? I got to go with a faster or a slower, right? So your shutter speed is 400, 800, 1600. So if I only got 1600, these are going to be dark, right? Okay, well, I got to bring them up in post. That's how it works. Yeah. I mean, when I'm shooting this, I don't go, whoop, didn't get the shot. They paid me for that shot. I better darn well know how to process that photo to get what I need to get out of it. And when I look at these photos, on these ones in specific, to the one that we're talking about with Citrus and a few others, I need to get that photo. Yeah. Plain and simple. When I go into a show, I have a set of photos in my head that I'm walking away with, right? And those are the ones I go after, these shots and, angles, whatever. And then I start playing, then I can, okay, let's try this or do this and get it more creative. But those shots that they're paying me to get, I got to get those photos, and you got to know how to get them. And yeah, and then you can be a little more creative after that. But
yeah. And as I got better shooting, and this goes back to the equipment and knowing your equipment, and I got better using Lightroom, which all those knobs in Lightroom came from the
filters in the dark room.
Yeah, exactly. Adobe didn't make those up.
It's not new.
So all those techniques. But what I started to recognize is what I could correct or get close.
Yep.
Right. So I could move on.
Yep.
Right. Versus what there's no fixing this and I got to try again.
So I will say this, just to interrupt you really quickly. Christian Sayers, when I got to Brody, he was probably one of the photographers that he was really nice to me. He was like, hey, if you need me to move, the first thing he said to me is, if you need me to move, just let me know. I was like, wow, that's a really nice guy. I had shot some shows before, and, working with a few other photographers at shows, but and so we, we would trade information and stuff. And at the time I was getting really sharp, crispy photos because I was shooting 3.2, 3.5, 4. Right, even f8, right? And he was like, "How are you doing that?" Because my camera was so good at low light, and I can't remember what he uses. I think it's a Canon. I think it's a Canon R5. But yeah. So, and he gave me some tips, and he's like, "Yeah, when you're shooting shows with this lighting, he told me, he was like, I always shoot one, one under exposure or -1, right?" And then bring it up in Lightroom because of the way that Lightroom handles the shadows, right? It's better than his camera, the way that his camera is in interpreting and handling the shadows. So I don't blame any photographer for using his equipment and understanding how he's going to handle that photo in post to get what he needs to get, right? To get the documentary or even the art that he's going after. So yeah, that was one of the big kind of aha moments for me was Lightroom maybe, you know what I mean? What you're going to see in camera or capture in camera, right? Then when you go to post, you know how you're going to handle that photo. You take a photo specifically because of the way that you're going to handle it in post.
Yeah. And again, having that photo in your head.
Yeah.
And recognizing how to use the combination of the equipment and the software.
Yes.
To get it.
Yeah.
It comes with an immense amount of experience and just shooting and doing it.
I was telling my friend Jeremy, I said, I'm a better editor than I am a photographer right now. And that, I mean, it's just a plain simple, I understand the technology and and how editing and being a marketer, again, I'm an email marketer in my day job. So I understand how content is used. I understand how content creators, what they need, what, marketers are specifically looking for from these photos, and you have to get them to that specific, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not a willy-nilly, oh, hey, this happened. I mean,
Right. No, and I love what an aurora looks like, right?
Yes. Yeah,
So
I've seen it.
when you get that alert, you have it in your head and
Yes.
you go to a specific spot,
Yep.
not because you want to capture the aurora, but you want to capture sort of the aurora in space.
Yes.
And so, but when you go to a show and you're working with an artist,
Yes.
you still have that stack of photos that you're going to get, and
Yeah.
you know what the venue is, and
Yep.
going back to the same venue over and over again,
Yeah.
knowing how the stage layout is, and
Yeah.
working with the lighting people, and knowing what's going to change and song to
Yep.
song. I mean, that's so important, so important.
It is too. And so specifically, when I'm shooting Delta Blues, when I'm shooting Brett Benton, I'm not going to make a citrus like level photo.
Yeah.
That doesn't work with the music. And so when we talk about the art, right? So specifically punk shows, they're going to use the flash. That is a specific look they're always looking for.
Yeah.
That black and white, crazy, why is this crowd 2 feet from, the guitar player, right? Why is the drummer 2 feet from the guitar player?
You want to be in the pit shooting photos.
Yeah, like it's on. I don't do that stuff. I'm 49, man. I got apprentices to do that. But yeah, so it's it depends on the type of music that you're shooting, how you're going to display that art. So with citrus, of course, it's going to be funky, you know what I mean? And bright and orange, or, you know what I mean? Lime, you know what I mean? Those colors that I'm looking for specifically. And when I go to post, that's the color of the lighting I'm looking for. I don't really, of course, if they're doing something weird with their face, I'll choose a new photo, but like those are the types of colors that I'm looking for. So when I process a Brett Benton photo, I most likely will go to black and white, or kind of that darker, brownish sepia flair to it. But when I'm doing citrus, it's going to be bright and sunshiny, and different bands, demand different types of art, so to speak.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you said.
And again, it's the audience, right? I mean,
Yeah.
You want to be creative as an artist.
Yep.
But the audience, if it's venues and talent buyers,
Yep.
You're going to confuse them if the genre of the artwork is the wrong genre for the genre of the music. And there's some consistency there that they're looking for.
Right. And being a marketer, I understand the downstream, how this is going to be used, right? How the artist is going to want to use the photograph, right? So I shoot based on that. So they can use it that way, right? I wouldn't take a Delta Blues and, this is a bright and sunshiny, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
really colorful photo. I might do that every once in a while, but for a festival, but for most of the time, right, you're going to meet that. And the other thing too, the audience is looking for a specific look from their artists. And so you try to stay within that the hem, so to speak, you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, it's all how that artist wants to be portrayed, but also the lighting and the coloring and the how everything really.
Yeah. Well, excellent. I think we can wrap it up.
All right.
This has been the Meandering Mixtape. This is Travis Wetherbee. Tell us your company again.
This is Last Light Photography.
And how do we get a hold of you? You're on Facebook.
I'm on Facebook. So Last Light Photography, LITE, like Miller Lite. And then on Instagram, it's at Photog from the Valley.
Excellent. We'll throw that up.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today. Hopefully you learned a little something.
Yeah.
And if you want to learn a little more, or if you would like the services of Travis and put together some really phenomenal artwork
Thank you.
that your band can use for marketing or EPK or whatever else you need, get a hold of us.
Yeah, definitely.
Because that's what we're doing. And we can do it right here in the Valley now.
Definitely.
Well, we've always been able to do it in the Valley, but
Yeah, we're getting more venues, we're getting more festivals, so it's been exciting. So yeah,
very
definitely.
good. Well, thank you, Travis. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ryan.